Welcome back to another episode of NFL News on the Boomer Bust channel. I'm your host Terry, and today talking about Baker Mayfield, but also going to mix in some Kevin Durant. I know that's not the NFL, obviously, but something I wanted to talk about, and didn't make sense to do two separate videos. So anyway, we'll talk about that. So Baker Mayfield finally gets traded to the Carolina Panthers, a conditional 5th round pick. I don't think I've seen what the conditions were exactly. But you have the Cleveland Browns taking on the majority of his contract, and then Baker taking a pay cut, $3.5 million, and then the Panthers are going to pay him $5 million this year. So, as speculated, the big contention for a lot of teams was they didn't want to pay Baker's salary. I believe he was around $18 million, and so they wanted Cleveland to take as much as possible. And of course, Cleveland probably didn't want to do that. But as most people figured, if you wanted to get rid of him that bad, then you would pay to get rid of him. It ain't that much money. But also, some people felt that if a team really wanted him, then you would pay some more money to get him. Now, I think personally that it definitely goes both ways, but, you know, at the same time, it was a situation where Baker made it abundantly clear for all to see that he was done with Cleveland. He was absolutely done with them. And so that makes that situation a lot harder, where you're trying to play hardball as the Cleveland Browns, because most teams are just like, you know what? We're going to wait to call your bluff. But that's kind of the situation with a lot of things. Not even to call your bluff, but we're going to wait for the best deal possible. That could happen with anything, free agency, with the draft, with trades. And so typically when a team pulls the trigger early, it's because they really want you. What the Browns did for Deshaun Watson means they really wanted him. And so they did what everybody else wouldn't do. This just goes to show once again that teams were not going to, you know, break the bank for Baker or do anything for Baker. I mean, really, Baker made all the concessions in the Browns. And again, part of that is, hey, we know y'all don't want to be together, so there's no leverage there. But at the same time, if you think a bunch of other teams are vying for Baker, as they say, the wolves are surrounding and they're waiting. If that's the truth, then why wouldn't you jump first? So I don't believe that it was a lot of interest. We had Ian Rappaport come out a few days ago and say Seattle never was interested in Baker. And we know Carolina was interested, but what was there outside of that? And I think that's the way it played out. But, you know, honestly, all of that doesn't matter too much. I mean, we do make a lot. I wouldn't say we. The sports media makes a lot about what teams think of other players by what they're willing to pay and all that. That don't always mean anything. Like, people are sitting here debating whether Baker has the starting job or Sam Darnold has the starting job. And Sam Darnold is getting paid $18 million. And so does that mean he's just as good as Baker? Does that mean he's better now? No, none of that really equates to each other. And so for me, I just feel like people have to get out of that mindset. That doesn't always mean as much as people try to make it seem, in my personal opinion. I mean, what matters is what we see on the field. Now, the fact is, Baker was really trash this year. Yes, I get that. But at the same time, I do think people are being a little more harsh as far as what he had to go through. And that's not to make an excuse, or not even an excuse, because excuses are fine. That's not to necessarily say, okay, well, Baker, if he's not injured, is absolutely amazing. No one's saying that. But what I am saying is that you do have to look at it at a bit of a curve, because what he did this year was hampered by that injury. And one thing that really got me to kind of turn my head, I was watching, I think it might have been on YouTube or something. It had popped up. It was just one of the random games from last year, and this was prior to his injury. And I was just like, wow, I don't remember Baker throwing the ball like that. Not that it was like super accurate consistently, but it had way more explosiveness and way more, velocity. And I was like, oh yeah, he got injured. Now people say it wasn't his throwing arm and all this other stuff. He was still out there. And I agree. If you go out there, you got to play. But at the same time, let's just be realistic. That's just like saying, oh, I went out there and played on a broken ankle. But you were slower. You suck. Like, no, I was on a broken ankle. Like, that matters. So, yes, I do think we might have been a little too removed from seeing Baker's real arm talent. Not that it's Josh Allen or anything, but he definitely has more short to medium area velocity than we remember. And we know he can be a little mobile, and we know he's a gamer, so it's not like he's trash the way, again, people have treated him. It's just the market. The market don't always, we have hella free agents that get broke off and suck. Like, the market don't always mean that you're a good player. So anyway, thinking about the Panthers, a lot of people saying that's a terrible situation to go into. I don't necessarily know if that's true. I mean, the defense was pretty solid in some areas, and we think can get, better as a lot of those younger players get better. And then J.C. Horn should be coming back. So hopefully he's healthy. We'll see what happens there. And, they're continuing to improve. Then, of course, you hope Christian McCaffrey's healthy, and that's one of the top running backs in the league, if not the top. And so you got a very dynamic weapon there. You got DJ Moore. I've seen a lot of people, especially today, just trashing the Panthers. And again, obviously they're not a great team, but I think they got good pieces. And so I don't think it's a terrible situation. Now, Matt Rule seems to be more of a mid-tier coach, maybe low-tier coach. But I don't know nothing about the Panthers besides, trying to build talent that makes it absolutely terrible. It's not really known as just a super trash organization or anything, or you got a coach that's going to tank the team. I think it could absolutely work. I think you got enough pieces on offense and you got a defense that's playing well together that you absolutely could, win some games. And then we know they drafted Icky. A lot of people talking about it's one of the worst offensive lines, and I haven't really looked at the O-line, but we know for Cam's time, that was always the issue. They never really put enough into the O-line. And so that's kind of been a narrative for a while, but Icky got drafted in the top 5, so we have to see what flexibility he could add, and I don't know what other pieces they added to it, but I think they got a chance to really improve. But on the other side of that, I see a lot of people mentioning, first of all, this whole thing with the Browns, that Baker took an 0-16 team and did this. Baker took them to their first playoff. Baker gave them their first playoff. First of all, I watched that game. Didn't they fumble the snap at the first play that ended up in a touchdown for Cleveland, something like that? But besides that, this ain't a Baker thing. It's a narrative thing that I always hate. Stop trying to put everything on the court. This is what annoys me. This is why you have such stupid debates about quarterbacks and everything else, because you want to give all the praise to them, and then somebody's going to be looking for one little thing to knock them off. Instead of realizing this is the ultimate team game. The ultimate team game. I know we just watched the finals and we loved it. Basketball is a team game, but not like football. There's 11 people on the field having to do everything at the same time. So do not, this stupid narrative. I don't know why people do that. Baker Mayfield was a part of a team that went from 0-16 to something. Baker Mayfield was a part of the first Cleveland Browns playoff win since such and such. Not this, Baker did this, Baker gave them this, Baker delivered. No, that's not how it happens. Every game is different, and usually, not usually, all the time, it's a contribution. So I don't want to hear that because that's leaking over to the Panther talk about what Baker can take this team and carry this team. Can Baker carry this team? Baker didn't carry the Browns. You had Nick Chubb, a top back in the league. You had Kareem Hunt, a top back in the league before he had his issues. You had Jarvis Landry, a Pro Bowl receiver. You had the best offensive line in the league. And you had a stacked defense with hella first round picks. Stop this. He carried the team. He did not carry the team. No one carries the team, and it definitely wasn't Baker Mayfield with the Cleveland Browns. So this idea of what he can carry or where he can carry Carolina, I think is stupid. I think really it's just about him, again, hopefully getting healthy and just showing that he's a competent quarterback so that he can, make his way to free agency, hopefully, and, start somewhere fresh. So, I don't know. I know he has to battle Sam Darnold, and if he's healthy, I think he wins. But I don't know. It's a lot of pressure, especially now for him to go out and play injured again. Hopefully he realizes the value of not doing that, and he stays cool, but he might. I don't know. And so we got to see. But I think healthy, he wins the battle. He starts. And I don't have super high expectations for the team, really. I do think they could win 8 or 9 games, but really it's just about Baker going out there and showing, again, that he's a solid quarterback. But also I think if he's a solid quarterback, again, they can win some games. So that's kind of how I feel about it. The whole Baker thing's been crazy. You know how I feel about Deshaun Watson and all that. I think it didn't really matter what they know about the Watson case, which they don't know. The briefings aren't due till next week. So, you kind of ignore those rumors. The person, I forgot her name, the former justice, she doesn't even have all the briefings yet. So I don't know. But it doesn't matter what they think they might know about that suspension. It's just, can you bring him back? I don't think you can. Not after the way it went down. Not after what happened with the coaches and everything. It would have been very hard for him to come back and be the quarterback. Just because his ego and the Browns' ego. And his ego needed to be stroked. And I don't know if I necessarily say it's a bad thing in this case. His ego, his pride was hurt. And, they needed to stroke it in order for him to come back. And I don't know that was going to happen. So there's that. Speaking of ego, over in the NBA, Kevin Durant, the Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie Irving. There's 2 parts to this. There's the KD part, player empowerment part. Well, actually, let me start with the player empowerment part, because that one's pretty to the point. It's gotten out of hand. I've never liked it. And of course, it sounds weird to say you don't like empowerment, but I don't like it. I do not care what the revisionist historians say. I don't care what anyone justifies it with. LeBron in the decision was horrible for the NBA. And that's been shown. And so I hated that from the moment he did it, mainly because of the way he did it. But also I hated that he did it. Everybody, they weren't champions before he got. I don't care. He came with Chris Bosh. And I don't care that Chris Bosh devolved to the third option. The man was a top 3 power forward. LeBron was the top small forward. Wade was a top 3 shooting guard. That's the problem. I don't care what the Heat did before. So LeBron said, I'm going to take some of the top players, remove them as competition. Well, he's on the Heat, so no Cavs and no Raptors, because we're taking their best players and we're all going to the Heat. And that is the problem. That's the spirit behind what LeBron did. Now, player empowerment in terms of being able to, I don't like that stuff. I'm going to be honest with you, but that doesn't bother me. If they demand, I got to be on this seat on the jet, or I got to have these days off, or I got to have all yellow M&Ms every game, whatever. Okay, diva stuff, whatever. But when you're talking about the team and affecting the way the team runs, that's when I have a problem. Now, to LeBron's credit, as some people have pointed out, LeBron finishes his contract. If LeBron valued flexibility more than anything, then he's going to sign a 1+1. And he did that a lot. Not only to keep pressure on the team, but also so he could have flexibility in case he wanted to move around. And you cannot have all of it. LeBron didn't say, I'm signing an 8-year contract and then 1 year into my contract, I'm demanding stuff or I'm leaving. LeBron said, I will sacrifice long-term security, bet on myself so that I can keep the power. So opposite of that is what KD is doing. And KD says, I'm going to sign this long-term max contract, but I'm not going to honor that. I'm going to get up and go. And we've seen some other, Harden being number one. Like, the fact that they signed Harden to a max or near max or whatever, and then this man up and forced his way out twice is absolutely insane. All I'll say is the owners is coming for that butt. The owners is coming for these players in that CBA. I don't know what they're going to put in there, how they're going to work it out, but the stuff they doing is absolutely crazy. Now, the Nets are showing a small way. They're showing that you can still use your leverage. It's just like the NFL. When you got, first of all, we don't get trade demands like that a lot. But when you do see them, which we've seen a lot recently, it's always when they're on a contract year. And that's typically what the NBA has did before. If you don't trade me, I'm going to walk in free agency. And so you're going to get nothing. But Durant now is taking that up a level, like a Harden. I have years on my contract. I don't care. I'm still leaving. Trade me. And just like the NFL, they're like, the Nets are saying no. How about no, actually? Unless we get something we like, we're not trading. What are you going to do? Sit out for 4 years? It was the same thing with Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson did not get into, if Deshaun Watson didn't get exposed, the Texans had every right to make that man sit there for 4 years. It's not happening. The only reason Deshaun got moved is because of the issues. And so it's the same with the Nets as it was with the Texans. Unless we get a deal that blows us away, we're not moving them. Doesn't help that Kevin Durant asked to be traded to the 2 number 1 seeds and teams that do not have the capital to get him. So, yes, that trade is not going to be, or it hasn't been a quick, fast process because obviously the parameters you set are pretty tough. So there's that. Now the KD side. Kevin Durant, I don't know him obviously, and it's tough because this is way beyond basketball. Every conversation about Kevin Durant right now is about him as a person, about him mentally and his personality, which is hard for me to say because I don't know. But I'm going to preface by saying I don't know. And we're speculating, of course, but I'm not going to say it with such strong authority because I don't know Kevin Durant, but I'm looking at the evidence. The question is out there, is he a follower? Is he not a leader? Now, as I've said many times before, the sports media really confuses people because they're arguing points that they themselves made. So when players do stuff, see, Kevin didn't prove that he's this. Whoops, Steph didn't prove that he's that. I told you he wasn't this and that. You're arguing your own point based off your own parameters. Kevin never said none of that. Steph Curry didn't say that. LeBron didn't say that. Baker Mayfield didn't say. Most of these things players have nothing to do with. It's just people sitting around talking, making up stuff, and then holding players to something that has nothing to do with them. See, Kevin Durant has shown that he's not willing to lead his own team, so he will never be considered a top blah, blah, blah. Okay, who said that Kevin cares about leading his own team or being considered a top whatever? Kevin cares about what he cares about, but who says it has to do anything with what you're talking about? And that's always the narrative when you're talking about sports media. So put that aside. I'm not, top 10 and all that. We're just talking about Kevin and his moves. For me, I will confirm and, conform and say it does seem like he does not want that smoke. Now, Kevin likes to say he's a hooper. He just wants to hoop. And I don't know. If you're a hooper, I don't know. I really don't know. If you're a hooper, when I think of a hooper, I think of Russ Westbrook. Russ Westbrook chased stats for a long time. People swore up and down how good he was. Never watched him, just looked at numbers. And all the time I was like, this man is pretty trash. Then he comes to the Lakers and was pretty trash. And so I get that. But KD, you went to the place with the spotlight. Then you teamed up with Kyrie Irving and, made a big deal about leaving Golden State. You put the spotlight on you. Now, when you want to leave that, did you ask to go to Orlando? Did you ask to go to Houston? Did you ask to go somewhere obscurity where you could hoop? No, you asked to go to one of the number one seeds. And so, what else is going to happen but the smoke? So, if you are putting yourself in situations where the spotlight's going to be on, where you're going to get the smoke, you're going to get the competition, then why are you acting like winning isn't important? That's the thing that doesn't make sense to me. Because obviously you want to compete for a championship. Otherwise, you wouldn't be trying to join the best teams. So, number one, it shows me that is important to him, that he wants to go for a championship. But number two, his moves also show that he's not willing to carry the load. Now, he is 34. And that's another thing with these trades. People going crazy. It's Kevin Durant. I get that it's Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant is also 34. So, yeah. And so, there's that. But, again, his moves show that he's not really trying to carry the load and lead the team not by himself, but he's not trying to be, the face of it. And that was the whole thing about leaving the Warriors. I'm not the face of it, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get the credit I deserve. Explain to me how that works then when you trying to go to teams that are already top competitors. I don't get that. And so, we don't know what the Kyrie thing is. The most consistent reports is that he wants to play with Kyrie Irving. And that this was not a Kyrie Irving thing, even though it happened right after Kyrie opted in. But Kyrie opted in because he said, okay, that's going to be the most money. If Kyrie didn't opt in, he would have been sitting in free agency with no real market. That's why he tried so hard to force a trade, because he knew that in free agency, he was not going to get what he could. So he opted in. He's taking that money, but he said, I'm not playing for the Nets anymore. And now Kevin's like, well, I ain't playing neither. That's what people think happened. Some people still try to say, oh, Kyrie's coming back, I'm leaving. I don't think that's the case. I don't think their relationship changed that fast. So, if he still wants to play with Kyrie, then the only reason to leave the Nets is to say, oh, they didn't hook my boy up, so I'm leaving. And again, in the middle of a long-term contract, because of your friend, that's just some over-the-top player empowerment diva stuff. And I can't get jiggy with that. That's just terrible. But at the end of the day, what I think will happen, I said after the first day, maybe the second day, I was like, I wouldn't be shocked if this trade happens during the season. And because the market is not great. It's just not there. The teams that can give up a lot don't want to. And the teams that KD wants to play for to compete don't have a lot to give up. So, I mean, where does the rubber meet the road here? And not to mention the Nets want a gigantic haul. Rudy Gobert messed up the trade market 5 players, 5 picks? Come on now. And I like Rudy Gobert, but come on now. And so the Nets is like, that's the minimum to get KD. The minimum. We want more than that. So the marketplace is messed up. I don't see how KD gets moved unless he goes somewhere that is nowhere near his list. And the Nets had a right to do it. Ain't nothing really KD. That's the thing. That is the thing, as I talk about LeBron. If you trade KD to the Raptors or you trade KD to the Thunder, guess what? They can say, sit KD for 4 more years if you're not going to play. We're not trading you. Anyone can do that because that's the contract he has. Now you're talking about coming back and playing at 38. I don't know. But if you are mad, if you're sitting there saying that's not fair, it's not fair, then you shouldn't sign the long-term contract. You should have did a 1+1. But you valued the money in the long term, so this is what comes with it. So I think this trade is going to happen later than people think, and I don't think it's going to be to any of the teams they think. I do think Warriors is a favorite of the competing teams. Because Heat, Suns, I don't see it. I really don't see it. Especially the adding to the complication, Ben Simmons. You can't have 2 players with whatever the contract is. And so there's a lot of players they can't get. A lot of good players. And so I just don't see the Heat. I don't see the Suns. Again, I think the Warriors is one of the unique teams that have the assets. Obviously, that'd be a crazy storyline. But outside of that, I think if he is traded, he's got to go somewhere that is a bottom tier, which might ironically work in his favor if he decides, okay, I'm going to actually hoop and we're going to see how far we can take this team. But so far, it doesn't seem like that's in his plans. So anyway, a lot we can talk about with KD, but that's my initial thoughts. So go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think about Baker, what you think about KD. Share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.